going back to Core 52. This is the week 19 teaching. The title is Deeper Morality. Alright? And if you guys want me to write this down, I will. Morality. Principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong. That's what that means. This word. Morality. A set of principles that concerns the distinction or the discernment or the knowing of right and wrong. Right? Can we write that down? It's the definition of morality. Just so you guys know. Principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong. That's the definition. Principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong. Jesus calls us into deeper morality or deeper righteousness, not broader righteousness. And we're going to find out what that means right here in just a minute, okay? So, in a sense, morality is discerning the difference between right and wrong. And if your actions, I was just looking it up in Revelation 20, he's talking about the book of life, everyone will be judged on what they do. Your actions tell us whether you know the difference between right and wrong, whether you walk it out. So, you can kind of see morality as if your will is lined up with God, and you believe in God, you believe in Jesus, and you believe you're filled with the Holy Spirit, and because of your faith you show good deeds, your morality becomes righteousness. Jesus calls it deeper, not broader righteousness. There are 6 illustrations that Jesus himself gives us that force us to look at the root of morality. The root. Okay, everybody knows what the root of a plant is, right? It's what it grows from, right? The root of morality, which is our motives. The intentions of your heart.
When you say it's deeper righteousness, not broader righteousness, it means like the way we live our life, right? Every action, good or bad, whatever.
Yep.
But okay, broader righteousness, you're not saying we're going out to do this.
Right. Broader righteousness means you're just lining up all these good deeds for people to see you doing good deeds. Deeper righteousness concerns your motives, the intentions of your heart, which we talk about all the time, because that's what faith is. Your belief system in your heart. What is true in your heart. Because in the book of Matthew, everybody turn to Matthew chapter 5, by the way. I should have said that already. Everybody turn to Matthew chapter 5. That's where we're going to be reading most out of today. A lot. We're going to be reading a lot out of Matthew chapter 5. But in Matthew chapter 16, either 16 or 18, he says where your treasure is, your heart will also be. What you treasure most, that's where your heart is. Right? So it's your motives that Jesus is worried about. We're going to look at it. It's in Matthew chapter 5. We're going to look at it, okay? So, Matthew chapter 5, verse 44, which is one of the core verses, Jesus specifically says, I tell you to love your enemies. This is Jesus' most offensive statement. That statement offends everybody, even us today. What do you mean I'm supposed to love? I'm supposed to love the snitch that stitched me out? Make me sign a 12? Yes. Crap. Dang it. You know what I'm saying? You got $90 and a get out of jail free card. I got a 12. Thank you. I'm just saying. He calls you to love your enemies. Love them. Not be nice to them. Not be indifferent to them and just let them go about their own. Love them. Take care for them. Pure and genuine religion inside of God the Father's care for orphans and widows and refusing to let the world corrupt you. Jesus does not want us corrupted by the world. He wants us enlightened by His words and His actions. Right? This is what Jesus devoted His life and His death to. That's that statement. Love your enemies. What did He say on the cross? Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. They're murdering Him. They're killing Him. And He says, forgive them. I love them. Forgive them. Right? Matthew chapter 5, verse 20 is the core verse, which is what's going to give us to understand this right here. And that verse says, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven.
Then we talk about like they were just saved by the law. They would have
Yes. If you think about it, the scribes, the Pharisees, the zealots, there's like 7 different sects of religious elite at the time of Jesus, right? They knew the Old Testament, especially the Torah or the Pentateuch, the first 5 books, by heart. They knew exactly what it said. And they were like, supposedly the righteous of they knew the word and they did it, whatever, they went above and beyond and made their own little man-made things to even further God's law in their own eyes. And they even stuck by them for the most part. But they were hypocritical. And they did it for fame. They didn't do it for God. Right? But He says, unless you are more righteous, if that's what you're trying to live by, if you're trying to live by the law, you have to do so well that you exceed the scribes and the Pharisees and the religious elite. Or you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. Right. What He's saying is you can't do it. You can't live your life by the law. You got to live your life by me, Jesus. Right? Yes. Romans chapter 6, right? Matthew 5:44 is the one that says, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, pray for those who persecute you. Bless those who curse you.
Righteousness means doing what is right and what is good.
Righteousness, the biblical or the working definition for righteousness is in right standing with God. In Genesis chapter 19, He says Abram believed in the Lord, and because of his faith, he was righteous. It also says in Galatians, they paraphrase it in Galatians, Abraham's faith in God, because of his faith, or Abraham had faith in God, and because of his faith, he was considered righteous, which means right standing with God. Which means you got a check mark and a gold star by your name on the chalkboard in the heavens. You're not on the restrictions list. You're not on extra duties. I'm tired of brushing these angels' wings. What would they make you do? You know what I mean? Come here, Michael. Quit flying away. I gotta get this done before Tuesday. Like, what the heck? You know? Robert, what you doing, bro? All right. Deeper morality. What does it take to be a good person? A lot. Answer that. Jesus made a stunning statement on the Sermon on the Mount, which is what Matthew chapter 5 is Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Okay? That's where it starts. Has everybody got this wrote down? Is anybody still writing? Anybody still writing? Come on, there's some good stuff in this. Tag on. You're going to have to piece it back together, bud. He said that to enter God's kingdom, you had to be more righteous than the Pharisees. Matthew 5:20. Right? It seems impossible. These religious leaders fasted twice a week, tithed off their entire gardens, all their herbs, kept what they wanted or what they thought was important. They tithed off most of their stuff that they didn't really have use for. They paused and prayed 3 times a day, every day. What they were trying to do was impress God. Think about that. Even as Christians today, we sometimes live our lives trying to impress God with the things that we do, instead of experiencing it right now, where we're at. Right? You can't impress him. You can't impress him. He can and will always have your back, be by your side, and be right there like the parable of the prodigal son, to kiss you, put his ring on your finger, royal robes, you know what I'm saying? But once you become his, once he chooses you, he expects you. Like father, like son. Right? When you get into that word, he's teaching you, he's raising you. Like father, like son. He expects you to act a certain way. He expects you to do certain things, right? So we got to stop trying to impress him. And that's what these people were doing. They're trying to impress God. They would stand on the street corners praying for hours. Not for 5 or 10 minutes. Who all was in here when we went to First Baptist in Pigeon Forge and the entire service was prayer? Was you still here? First Baptist in Pigeon Forge, we used to go there when I first come in the program. And Toby was the pastor down there. 45 minutes of he laid down up front on the altar, and we all went down for 45 minutes. He prayed. It was amazing. Amazing. These guys would go even farther than that. Hours praying, trying to look good, right? Is it really impossible to exceed the righteousness of the most faithful religious leaders of Jesus' day, which were the scribes and Pharisees? Those were the two that are talked about the most in the Bible anyway. Sometimes when we go to church and we hear sermons, they make it seem that we can never measure up to God's expectations. Christians are often paralyzed by their past, especially when you come out of darkness like what we've come out of. And it ain't just about drug addiction. It could be sex addiction, prostitution. Like, think about that. People that were in abusive homes, like their mother and their father, or they beat them, you know what I mean? Like, think about that. Drug addiction ain't the only one. You know what I mean? And we can relate to them. Because of what we went through, we can relate to almost any other kind of abusive or that type of environment. You know what I mean? And we're often paralyzed by it. And it says in the Bible, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can move this mountain to move, and it will. But you can't move a mountain if you're paralyzed. Right? You can't move a mountain if you're paralyzed. What paralyzed you? Fear, sin. Romans tells us we're no longer slaves to sin. Quit letting that hold you down, right? Can we really live a life that God considers righteous? Well, I just told you the 2 verses about Abraham. Bet you. What did God himself said, I consider you righteous. Why? Because of your faith. And because of his faith, he wasn't afraid to act on it. Dude, he tied his own son. He waited 100 years to get Isaac, his son. He had a son, Ishmael, at like 80 or 90, or however old he was, 90. And God was like, I didn't tell you to have him with your slave woman. Now you're going to wait 10 more years before you get the son that I told you was going to get. Right? He's 100 years old and he finally has a son. And he's kicking it. God's like, bring him up here, give him to me. Give him to me. All right, fine. No hesitation. No hesitation. He was walking it out, right? So, can we live a life that God considers righteous? Yes. But it's not because we can do more personal improvement, which drug addiction, when you first start your recovery, you have to be a little bit selfish. You do. Because if you don't, you're going to fall. You have to be a little bit selfish. You have to be like, I'm changing. I'm not getting high no more. I'm not listening to them. You've got to be a little bit selfish. You have to. Right? It's just the nature of the beast. But at some point, it has to stop being about your recovery and about you helping others. So it's not about our personal improvement, but it's because we improve our motives. Can you live a righteous life in God's eyes? Allow Him to change your motives. Where does it say that at? Romans chapter 12? Or no? Yeah, Romans 12. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may know my will, God's will, which is pleasing, perfect. Good, pleasing, and perfect for you. Acceptable. Right? Let Him transform you, your way of thinking, your desires, your motives. The reason why you do the things you do. That's what motive means. Actually, let's look that up. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. Yes. Romans 12, right? Yeah. Yep. And that improves your motives. When you allow God in your heart and allow Him to transform you, you have to allow Him. He ain't just going to do it. You have to ask Him to. You have to be open to it, and you have to allow it to happen. He ain't going to just do it. Right? It'll improve your motives. And the definition for motive is your reason for doing something. Your reason for doing something. Like we were just talking about, why did you give $10 to the guy at the gas station knowing he'd already asked 4 other people for money and just got back in his truck and never pulled the gas on? He felt like it was the right thing to do. What was your reason for doing what you did? That's your motive, right?
Don't that coincide with taking captive of thoughts and casting?
Yes, taking captive your thoughts. And the more you get into that book, and the more you allow God to train you up, and other people that are more spiritually mature than you, the more able you are to take your thoughts captive. You know what I'm saying? Because God, I'm telling you, God don't want to sit here and marionette you your entire life. He don't. He don't want to pull strings and make you do things. Ever. He wants you to do it on your own. He wants you to be a little Christ. That's the mystery, right? I'm going to say that. What is the mystery? The whole mystery of Christianity. It's real simple, but it's hard for everybody to understand. Christ is in you. What? Yes. That's the mystery. You've got Jesus inside of you. You don't need somebody to pull the strings and make you do anything. Let me find out where that verse is at. Paul speaking. That's Paul speaking, maybe. Colossians 1:22, is that him? No. Yeah, Colossians 1:27. Let's read that. That's freaking awesome. That's the whole issue. Paul puts it to you plain and simple. This is the mystery. It's been kept in the dark for a long time. But now it's out in the open. God wanted everyone, not just the Jews, to know that His rich and glorious secret, inside and out, regardless of your background, regardless of your standing, the mystery in a nutshell is this: Christ is in you. Mind blown. He is in you. So therefore you can look forward to sharing in God's glory. You can already look forward to sharing in God's glory because you said, Jesus, fill my heart. You indwelt you with the Holy Spirit. You activated it. You engage it daily. Christ is in you. Your little Jesus is running around. Maybe you change your motives. Yeah, there is. Why do you think He said you're going to do miracles just like me and even greater things than this? Right? Once you understand that, you know. Jesus was asking not for broader righteousness, right? But for one that's deeper. He doesn't expect you to go to church more often. He doesn't expect you to tithe a greater percentage. And He doesn't expect you to pray for longer or more minutes. He's calling us to righteous motives. Righteous motives. He wants the reasons why you do the things you do to be in right standing with God. That's what He wants. Let me go back to Matthew. Hold on.
What's that scripture that talks about wearing around the neck, wearing
Millstone. Asking for a roof.
Or are you talking about the Word of God?
what about?
Yeah, that's in the Old Testament. It's in the Old Testament where he says, put it on little notes, put it in your pocket, write it around your neck, write it on your doorpost, write it on your frames, write it on the fence as you go out. That way you don't ever forget. Or write it on your heart. Matthew chapter 5. Oh, get your pride. We're probably going to start somewhere around verse 20, just so everybody knows. So, he wants us to have righteous motives. Okay, Matthew 5:20 says, unless your righteousness exceeds that of scribes and Pharisees, you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. Scribes and Pharisees based their belief on God on the law in the Torah. Law measures actions. That's what it does. The law today measures actions. Did you break it? I bit the heck out of it. You know? Like daggum, it measures actions, right? True righteousness, alright? Was it you asking about what does righteousness means? Here you go. True righteousness grows from your motives. So if you truly want to be in right standing with God, which the Pharisees weren't, because their motives were selfish, they were for fame. When Jesus come around and started talking and people started following him and they stopped going to the synagogues, they got mad because he hit their pocket right there. They was worried about their money. Their motives were not righteous. Right? True righteousness grows from the reason why you do the things you do. If I keep the law by not killing, am I still liable for destroying lives through gossip? Oh! Man. If I love my neighbors, it's likely good for me. But if I love my enemies, it's likely because I'm good. If I love my neighbor, it's probably going to be good for me. I'm going to benefit from loving my neighbor. If I love my enemy, it has to be the only reason why you would love somebody that hates you is because you're inherently good. Right? Let me write this down. I like this one too. The law manages our behavior. More or less, it makes us do things. Or not do things, right? Jesus transforms our character. That's the difference between the law and Jesus. You've heard me say this a million times. He'll change, he won't change your nature, he'll change your purpose, your reasons. Your reasons. It's what Jesus wants to change. Your motives. Your character, your morals, your ethics is what feeds the reasons why you do things. So if Jesus transforms your character from bad apple to not so rotten, and on and on, you know what I mean? It's in stages. Your character starts to line up with his. The reasons why you do things start to become righteous, and all of a sudden they're having a daggum party up there, like with those things, cold hats, everything. Those little snappy things you can throw them down. You know, like come on, man. If I was an angel, I'd love them things. They'd never work because my feet wouldn't be able to ground.
So if you're being righteous in what you're doing, and you're trying to walk with God, or whatever, you got it, you want it inside of you, or whatever, though. So you want to tell, or you want to do like, I'm walking for the Lord, or whatever, though. I'm just waiting for Jesus to talk to me and tell me what to do next. Is it just like are you gonna be seeing the signs and you knowing that like whether something right or wrong, and then when you choosing the righteous path to take, is that showing that you're walking with God?
Yes.
And that's what you
Yes.
visualize in that part, and that's when you like, that ain't the right thing to do, this is the right thing to do.
That's where conviction and condemnation comes in. Like, when you are wanting to walk with Christ and you actively choose something wrong, you're going to like feel condemnation towards yourself. You're going to hate yourself for it. Drug addicts are real bad for this. And we're beating ourselves up and we're like, man, I messed up again. Man, I messed up again. If you're walking for Christ and you're wanting to walk for Christ and you do something that you didn't realize, you know what I'm saying? You're trying to make choices that line up with Him, that are righteous, and all of a sudden you do something and it hits you, man, I don't know if that really was the right thing to do. You'll be convicted. God, please, I don't know, God. I don't know if that was the right thing to do. Please forgive me. And you're still walking with Him. Even if you make a wrong choice, you don't stumble, fall, because He's right there with you. Right?
So is the path that He's gonna show you, or I mean, I ain't seeing it like that, but I'm just saying the path that He's showing you is gonna be so obvious that it's the right thing to do, or you gonna be
not always, bro.
Whether it's like
not for real personal
like
experience,
this.
not always. Like, but I'm weird. Like for each individual's gonna be different.
Right.
Okay, each individual's revelation from God is different. The way He reveals Himself to you, so that you know without a shadow of a doubt that He's real, is different for each individual. For me personally, like, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Literally, I struggled with a lot of decisions. A lot of them. Teaching class, counseling. I'm like for real, like serving at church. These are decisions that God wasn't like, that's what I want you to do. And I'm like, come on, man. Now I'm the one bothering Him. You know, I'm like, Jesus! At like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. I fell asleep for a little bit, so now it's 7:30 in the morning. Hey, get back! You know what I mean? That was me, but He wasn't bugging me. I was bugging Him. And He was like, I don't know what it was about, dude. He's like, just scrubbing me. And that's where the dimes come into play. Y'all ever heard my story about the dimes? I would literally be asking, God, is this what you want me to do? Is this what you want me to do? What you want? Tell me! You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, I got like literally sleeping in the parking lot of the laser board. Swept the whole parking lot. It's 7 in the morning. No cars, because none of us drive. The bus drops us off. You know what I'm saying? There ain't no cars in the parking lot. I sweep the whole parking lot, and I'm meticulous. I don't miss an inch. You know what I mean? Just trying to waste time, so I'm not just sitting around going, I come back through, there's a dime where I've been home. Somewhere where I just swept. I know it. You can't tell, you know what I'm saying? So He starts agreeing with the decision I'm making, but it wasn't apparent to me initially. He didn't like, when He opens doors for me, He don't put a neon flashing sign that's Jimmy with an arrow for me. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of halfway got to figure it out myself. Because if I don't, I won't believe it. And that's personal. It's really hard for me for something to be so blatantly obvious and me put my heart into it. I'm like, I'm kind of skeptic on that's way too easy. You know what I mean? I am. And God knows that. So for each individual, it's different. It is. For me, He didn't like mow the path with the lawnmower. It was like thorny and thickets. Going through the swamp.
So it's like when you start asking what the right thing, you know, or like,
That's a real thing too.
like,
If you're asking him questions,
you worry so much about it, but then you start asking him about it.
If you're asking him questions, He will answer you something. Like, I've never heard the audible voice of God. I never have. Okay? Straight up, I know 2 people that have told me stories about hearing God audibly speak to them that I truly believe. Okay? For the most part, He speaks to me through Christian books, always through the Bible. Like when I'm asking Him something and I'll go into my reading for that day, it'll be there. Like, why didn't you tell me this 2 days ago? You know what I'm saying? Like, I gotta hurry. You know, but through people, I can't tell you how many times I've come in here and one of you guys has said something to me, man, let me tell you what happens, you know. Man, you won't believe this. You start telling me something happened to you, and I'm like, inside of me, I'm going, I was just talking like, not that specific situation, but something similar. You know, and I'm asking God, what's the right answer here? And we're going, man, dude, this happened. This is what they said to me, and blah, 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 blah. Inside of me, I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, he speaks. It's just different. It's different for everybody. It is. But you'll know. I know you, bro. You're in that word. You know what I'm saying? It ain't a game to you. Like, I've been around you long enough to know when we went to Alabama, the times we've had to talking after classes, it's not a game to you. He's not going to leave you high and dry. He worked his butt off for you. God worked his butt off for each and every one of you. He didn't sit still waiting on you. He was working for you. People were praying for you to come in again. He was putting things in front of you that kept you alive to get you here. He worked his tail off for you. He's not going to let you go easy.
Amen.
He ain't going to do it. You know what I'm saying? But he wants you to know his will to the fact where Jeremiah, let's see, Jeremiah chapter 31, he says, I will write my word on your heart, and no longer will you have to teach each one another to come back to the Lord. At some point in our future, we will not have to stand in front of each other and tell each other about Jesus. We'll all know. That's what he's saying. We'll all know. But he's got to use guys just like any one of y'all sitting here. Don't throw that to the wayside. All of you. Every one of you. Whether it's one person, 10 people, or 1,000 people, you're going to touch somebody with Jesus. You're going to do it. I'm telling you, you're going to. Right? That's God. It's God's mission. He commissioned us. It's his mission. It will not fail. Right? So, law manages your behavior. Jesus transforms your character. So, in Matthew chapter 5, where we're at, Jesus gives 6 examples of deeper righteousness, not broader righteousness. Okay? The heart of the matter is the heart of the matter. Okay? Matthew chapter 5, verse 21 to 26. Will Chris, read that. Matthew chapter 5, from verse 21 to verse 26.
You have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be in danger of the judgment. But I say to you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of judgment. Rocco shall be in danger of the council, but whoever says, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar, and go your way. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come to the altar your gift. And then come to offer your gift. Agree with your adversary quickly while you are on the way with him, lest your adversary deliver you to the judge hand you over to the officer, and you will be thrown into prison. Surely I say to you, you will by no means get out of there until you have paid the last fee.
So Jesus is saying, murder is against the law. We all know this. It's not just Mosaic law, it's every law known to humanity. Every country, every ethnic group, every race. I don't care where you're from on the entire planet, you're against murder. All of them. All civilizations. Every. Right now, there are cannibalistic tribes of people that kill whatever, but it's like they still get punished for it in their.
What does it mean when that says bring your gift to the altar and then after bringing it to the altar, you think that
he's saying right there, hold on, let me change versions on my phone so that I'm in a version similar to yours. What he's saying is, even if you're angry with someone, you're subject to judgment. Okay, at this time in history, they still were bringing gifts or sacrifices to the altar. Jesus hadn't died yet. He hadn't been crucified yet. To atone for your sins, to atone for someone else's sins in your family, your kids, to tithe, or to do anything that God asks you to give at this time in history. You actually brought something physically, a goat, a lamb, a bull, all your wheat, olive oil, bread. You brought something physically to the altar of the temple and offered it to God. And specifically, Jesus is saying, if you made somebody mad, so if you're presenting your sacrifice at the altar in the temple, and you remember that you've offended someone, or someone has offense against you, set it to the side, reconcile first, and then present your offering to God. Because he's not necessarily going to see it as holy if you let that slide. No, the gift is God's. The gift is God's. The gift with your brother is reconciliation. That's the gift between the two of you.
You have to get like, understanding about it, or do y'all have to have to be?
You come to an understanding about it. You're doing your part. And if they don't accept, that's on them. All right? Forgiveness and good-heartedness, you can lead the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. Right? You can offer your forgiveness and ask for theirs, but you can't make them willing to do one or the other. Right?
On reconciliation, what if you don't know how to get in contact with the ones that you've done wrong to in the past? Do you still offer?
Ask God.
You ask God to
Ask God. Ask God for say if it's something you've done to them. God, I know I did this to them. I have no way of contacting them or getting a hold of them. Maybe at some point in my future you'll allow them to cross my path. But until then, will you send some sort of revelation to them through somebody, through your word, through something that tells them that I'm sorry. And at some point, like honestly, like my Facebook page is the same Facebook page. I was never one of these drug addicts that forgot his password or pay. It's the same Facebook I've had since like 2010, whenever it was I signed up for it. Same Facebook. 75% of the people that are my friends on that Facebook are still in active addiction. They see every video, if they're willing to look at it, they see every video that I post. So if I've done them wrong, if I shorted them, or, which in my mind, that's me doing them wrong. Even though I'm dealing destruction, you know what I'm saying? To them, it was offensive to them. I can't get a hold of them, you know what I mean? Like, I can't, I don't, like, number one, God hasn't released me to go back into the streets, really. You know what I mean? I'm not going out there looking for them. I'm just not, until he tells me it's okay, right? But I'm offering myself through other ways, like social media. And I've had several, probably close to 100 people from my past message me or comment or something on one of them videos and say something. And that gave me an opportunity to be like, dude, I'm like, because I'm truly sorry for every time that I'm like, let's get high. I just ruined you even further. I just ruined you even further. You know what I'm saying? At the time, I saw it as me being kind. Me being kind. You know, I'm sitting here with all this stuff. Why wouldn't I share with you? But now that I look at it, I'm destroying you. I'm killing you. You know? I made it a point where if you was getting high with me, I didn't leave. Most people's like, I'm gone. Nope, I'm sitting here because, you know what? I don't care how many times I tell you, I know what you're fixing to do. Man, take it easy with that stuff. You ain't fixing to take it easy with it. I have to breathe for you. You're ready to have to breathe for you. And it happened to me every time. Every time. So I would stick around. In my head, I'm like, I'm moral. I'm ethical. I'm not going to let you die, bro. I'm going to stay here until you fall out so I can bring you back. Stupid. Stupid. You know what I'm saying? No. I need to ask him for forgiveness for that. My own sister, and Jamie Smith, and I go Nick Jones and Jim Smith. All four of them at Books Media Park Lot. Oh. Wake up! It's crazy, bro. I had a hard time forgiving myself for some stuff I've done, bro. You know what I'm saying? For real. I had a hard time forgiving myself for some of the things I've done. Like, woo. It was hard, man. It was hard. Forgiveness is hard. It is.
It's easier to ask for forgiveness and forgive others, but forgiving yourself for what you've done
It's
to
hard.
others is the hardest
It's hard.
thing ever.
And it took me 18 months. Literally 18 months day for day to start forgiving myself for some things. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was tough, man. That was tough right there. So murder is against the law. However, murder is just a symptom. Anger is at the root of murder, right? So Jesus demands that we deal with anger. If we don't, we wind up doing precisely what he predicted, which is insulting, slandering, accusing, and dividing. While slander, or what a common name is libel, like when you talk bad about somebody, right? It's not a crime, it's more lethal than murder. Words, you speak life and death with your words. Right? Far more families are destroyed by gossip than they are homicide. How many people in here come from a family where you didn't talk to your brothers or sisters, or your uncles, or your cousins, or your mom and dads, because y'all fought all the daggone time, and they talk crap, and you talk crap, and it was like, ah! More families are destroyed by your mouth than they are. You didn't kill them, you didn't shoot them, they wasn't dead, but they didn't exist to you. Because of what they said, what you said.
We think first. A family like that, don't talk because they do that, but my family's so two-faced, they'll talk. We argue and fight, but then we'll still talk. And we talk behind each other.
I mean,
You don't know bad.
Like, there's no difference. That's what Jesus is telling us. There ain't no difference. You're just wearing the left shoe, he's wearing the right shoe. Same pair of Nikes.
I seen him die.
The effect is the
Was it
same.
visit?
The effect is the same. We're going to go into some of that right here. Actually, this next one right here, we're going to go into some of that. The effect is the same. Does anybody need this? Anybody writing this down still?
What was that last thing?
Do what? I said, was anybody writing this still? That's the last thing I said.
Anger is the root of murder.
Adultery. Matthew chapter 5, verse 27 to verse 30. D, you want to read it? 27 to 30, sorry.
You have heard that was said, you should not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye makes you stumble, tear it out and throw it from you. For it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. If your right hand makes you stumble, cut it off and throw it from you. For it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. Go further?
You stopped at 30, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, stopped at 30. So, now on this one, you notice I didn't write adultery is against the law, because in today's times, you don't get arrested for cheating on your wife or your girlfriend. But, Mosaic law, adultery was against the law, right? But lust is the root of that. Again, Jesus is taking us deeper to our motives, right? So adultery might be just considered wrong, but even in today's society, and even in Jesus' society, lust was generally accepted. Y'all ever seen them old cartoons with the wolf where he's at the club going, whistling, you know what I mean? His tongue drops all the way down the floor and rolls out of his mouth and everything. You You can look, but you can't touch. It's generally accepted, right? For Jesus, this was a perverse oversight. Dealing with our lust is so essential that he suggests cutting off the offending body part. No way! Dang it! You know, like your eye, your hand, whatever it is, that causes. You know? Like what the heck? You'd be a torso. You know what I mean? You look like a raisin. He literally says, if you can't deal with it, maybe you should amputate the offending body part. So, and this is one of these instances where you realize Jesus has a sense of humor. Because he's serious, but he's not like, it is law that you will cut off your, it's not, he's serious, but it's hyperbole, right? Okay, it's a little sarcastic. Jesus is being sarcastic here. A little bit. He's being funny, right? That doesn't mean, just because he's saying it sarcastically, that doesn't mean that it's not serious. Okay? Particularly given the pornography available today. My 14-year-old son has a phone with service on it, with data. I don't care where he goes, he can access it. Both my 8-year-old nephews, they're my cousin's kids, so she works for Apple, doing something on the computer. They both have iPhone 13s. They're 8. They've got $1,200 cell phones. They can do and find anything they want, bro. Anything they want. You know, that's how serious it is, right? Our sex-saturated society is fueled by lust. We're experiencing unprecedented levels of sexual dysfunction. Never has Jesus' call to purity been more relevant than in today's times. It isn't an issue of being like a Puritan or a prude or an Amish or something, you know, like a Mormon. It's not an issue of being like that, you know what I'm saying? It's
having sex without marriage, is that considered sin?
Have we not talked about this before?
Yeah.
There's been plenty of things that I've learned in the almost 4 years that I've been a Christian. Okay, listen. This is all I'm going to say on the subject. There is not a verse in the Bible that says an unmarried man and an unmarried woman cannot have sex or that it's sin. But there's 1,000 verses in the Bible that says it's wrong. That implies that it's wrong. Okay? You cannot open that Bible and find a verse that says if you're an unmarried man and you're an unmarried woman, it's against God's law to have sex. It doesn't say it like that. You won't find it because I tried. Alright? When I first became a Christian and Psalms 37 says, take delight in the Lord, He'll give you all the desires of your heart. Well, I was still in lust. And I wanted a woman. Right? So I made these things up in my mind that said, oh, well, it's not in there. I look for it. It's not in there. I look for it. But then as I grew spiritually more mature, there's 1,000,000 verses that says self-gratification should be held off for the betterment of your family, your mental health. It's a unspoken principle or doctrine or truth from the Bible because it benefits you in every way. It benefits you in every way. And Paul talks about it a lot too. He says, if you can't satisfy yourself, you need to get married and satisfy each other so you don't keep running around, whoring around. Because you're destroying yourself. Sexual sin destroys you. It destroys you. Literally destroys you. Right? Now, just like we were talking about, God forgives you. God will forgive you. So if you're walking with Christ and you want to walk with Christ, and all of a sudden you feel convicted because you had sex with a woman, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now you need to ask God for forgiveness.
Yeah,
Don't allow yourself to feel condemned, like, well, I'm worthless, now I'm not worthy of His kingdom, I've done this. No. If you're truly wanting to walk with Christ, you will feel convicted, not condemned. Right? And He'll bring it on you. I'm not lying, dude. It took almost 3 years for me to feel any kind of convictions over anything sexually that I may or may not have been doing. I'm just saying. I'm married now, guys. You know what I mean? Thank you, Paul. Like,
That's what
I don't have to worry about it anymore. I found the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. That is centered around God. Her life revolves around God. My life revolves around God, and we revolve around each other in a godly way. And you'll find that.
But like,
That's what you want.
But like, it's considered sin if you like, you know it's wrong, and you know you're going to feel guilty afterwards and feel condemned, but you do it anyway.
Yeah, that's called the learning process.
I'm not okay.
I'm just saying, that's called the learning process. Like, literally, it's called a learning process.
What about sexual immorality?
Sexual immorality is anything sexual where your motives are impure. You could care less about the girl. You just want the satisfaction.
Yeah.
That's sexual
So
immorality.
wouldn't that be any time?
That's sexual sin.
So wouldn't that be any time that you're like, that's like bad intention when you're not married?
Well, here's the deal. Okay, and like God will reveal to me if I'm wrong at some point. Probably through a preacher, probably Sunday at church. Okay? So, I'm not going to lie. Rachel and I have been together for almost 2 years. We did some things with each other prior to our marriage. And I even spoke to Pastor Steve about it, and he said God will still bless your marriage. In our hearts, we were already married. We told each other our love for each other. I asked her to marry, like the whole marriage thing, putting the ring on her finger and signing the piece of paper was man-made 1,000 years ago. Not a creation. Not in the Bible. They did not. They had marriage ceremonies to trade property in the Bible. That's what they did. When they had a wedding, it was a week-long thing usually where they celebrated because the man gave $1,000 to the woman's family, or however much he had to give them for the woman. Women were property back then. Okay, you didn't go to the courthouse and get a marriage certificate. You know what I'm saying? God will bless your relationship if your motives are pure. If the intentions of your heart are righteous, He'll bless it. But the Bible, it may not, like I said, it may not say unmarried man, unmarried woman cannot have sex. There's not a verse that says that. But there's a million verses that imply it.
Paul talks about somewhere a certificate of divorce, don't he? Like when he's talking about the adultery criteria.
Okay, so in the law of Moses, you could divorce your wife for anything. They didn't necessarily have certificates then at the time of Jesus. I think they did. When Paul rolls around and Jesus rolls around, they're actually asking Jesus about divorce. We're getting ready to get into that. All right? It's in Matthew right here, I'm pretty sure, where he talks about it. I think it's something we're fixing to talk about. Yes, we're fixing to talk about it, okay? So I'll answer your question in just a minute. We're going to do adultery and we're going to do divorce, and then I'll finish this teaching later, okay? Because this is a good one, guys. So, all of our sexual dysfunction is fueled by lust, and it's not just an issue of being pure anymore. Because the sexual sin that we see going on around us affects our families. Like, now that I'm walking with Christ, and thank God this hasn't happened yet, I've got an 18-year-old son and a 15-year-old son. If I catch them with some porn or something on their phone, I'm going to tell them that it's wrong. I'm going to. You know what I mean? It hasn't happened yet, but I'm going to tell them it's wrong. And I can especially see teenagers. We've all been teenage guys, obviously. I don't know, maybe one of you was a teenage girl. But anyways, we've all... James is going, yeah. Like, we've all been through that stage where your parents didn't know nothing. You know what I'm saying? And I know it's going to cause friction. Anything. It don't have to be porn. It can be anything. Like when I get on to them for not coming to church, they didn't come to church that day. I'm like, what the heck? And they're like, Dad, you know what I mean? It causes friction. So it affects your family's health. It affects your mental health. It does. Because every time you indulge in something sexual and you deceive yourself and tell yourself that it's okay, when you're convicted about it, knowing it's not, so you're doing it anyway, it's affecting you. It's affecting you. And it hardens your heart because you're exposing yourself to a lie. Right? Not the truth. It affects you. It affects human decency and it affects society's stability. Think about that. How stable is our society? How sex depraved is your society? They go hand in hand. They go hand in hand, right? So, Matthew chapter 5, verse 32. Timothy, since you brought it up, read that.
But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for marital unfaithfulness, causes her to become an adulteress. Anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Keep going.
No, just verse 32, please.
Okay.
In Malachi chapter 2, God himself says, I inhabit every detail of marriage. God himself, speaking through the prophet Malachi, he says, I inhabit every detail of marriage. All of it. Okay? So it is very, very, very important to God. Marriage is very important to God. Okay? So divorce is a very hot topic. Right? So when I get done with divorce, we'll end, okay, you guys? In Judaism, divorce is perfectly legal. But it's considered wrong. It's considered wrong. Alright? Jesus wants to put a stop to marital destruction. So divorce is considered wrong, yet it is legal. But Jesus, almost like adultery, okay, in today's society. You can go cheat on your wife and you're not going to go to jail. You can go get a divorce and you're not going to go to jail. But Jesus is trying to put a stop to marital destruction, okay? Because marriage is a union. It's a union. When you accept Jesus into your life, it's a union. Read your daggum curriculum package. It's called monogeny. It's where your DNA literally gets infused with the Holy Spirit that's in you, and all of a sudden you're transformed into something new, a new creation. Marriage is a union. When it's real and it's righteous, you mold together as one, and you transform into something new, right? You do. It's amazing. It's amazing. So he wants to put a stop to all this marital destruction. So he says, I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except on the grounds of sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery. And this is going to go back to where the effects are the same. The family that don't talk to each other and the family that does, the effects are the same. And whoever marries a divorced woman makes her commit adultery. If you divorce her, you're forcing her into adultery. If you marry her, you're forcing her into adultery. Right? This saying has unfortunately been used to cause pain when Jesus intended it to reduce pain. Remember, Jesus' point is not a stronger law, but a deeper morality. The Pharisees said that a man could divorce a woman for any reason, with impunity, but they could not commit adultery. Jesus was pointing out that divorce causes the same damage as adultery. That's what he's pointing out. He's saying if you divorce your wife, it's going to cause the same problems, the same mental effects, the same lasting social ostracization where you're outcast, especially back then. If you got divorced, you're an outcast. If you committed adultery, you're an outcast. It's the same effect. He was pointing out that it causes the same type of damage. Clearly, the two transgressions of divorce and adultery are not the same thing, yet they affect the same consequences.
Give me the definition of adultery.
The definition of adultery? I'll give you the Jimmy Goins definition. So, and it has to do with marriage, okay, specifically. Voluntary sexual intercourse between a married person and a person who is not his or her wife or husband. So, if you're married and you have sex with somebody that's single, you're both still committing adultery because you're married. If you're married and you're having sex with somebody who's married to somebody else, you're both committing adultery. It specifically deals with someone who is already in a one flesh relationship. Adultery is. Right? There's no other definitions. The voluntary sexual intercourse by a married person with someone other than their spouse. So, they have the same, divorce and adultery bring on the same consequences. Fighting with your family or talking bad about your family and not talking to each other, and then fighting with your family and talking bad about your family and going behind their back and doing it while still eating donuts in their front yard, you know what I mean? It causes the same effect, the same consequences, the same type of destruction. But God will always provide a way for reconciliation. So even if it might be a little easier for you because you're still going over there to eventually reconcile. You see what I'm saying? Whereas he might have to work a little bit harder because he ain't been around his family for 15 years. You know what I mean? You're like, what are you going to, man, let me borrow your microwave. What are you going to say to him? You know what I mean? Can I borrow your dog leash? You don't even have a dog. Like, what the heck? I gotta find a reason to go over to Uncle Bob's. You know? Like, what are you gonna say? But the consequences are the same. In fact, many women who were abandoned by a man through divorce may largely be innocent, yet suffer identical effects as an adulterous woman. Both lose economic security. Both are ostracized as sinners. Both are vulnerable to predatory males. What's the easiest woman to get? One that just got out of a relationship.
Yeah.
For real. For real. It's like you can smell the blood in the water. You know what I mean? You can. Like you can tell when a woman's like they're emotional, they wear their hearts on their sleeves for the most part. You know what I mean? And some dudes prey on that. That's a real thing.
Yeah, I did.
That's a real thing. He's like,
I did.
That was me.
They break up, and I'll be like, I'll be in there, but I wouldn't do that to you.
I'm just saying, like, you're on Facebook and you see them post. I just broke up with my boyfriend. Kyle's first one calls him. He's like, man, you want to come over and talk about
it?
it?
Relationship status goes from interrelationship to single. I'm the next one in there.
Yeah.
How you been?
Crazy, bro. But it's a real thing. The same, a woman who commits adultery goes through the same things. She's outcast. She's affected economically. So especially in the time of Jesus, right? Those Pharisees who justified their divorces as legal would have then had to explain to Jesus how the consequences of their actions were any different from forcing their spouses into adultery. And they couldn't. Jesus shut them Pharisees up quick, didn't he? Think about that. Like, you got all these skeptics out there today. Like, I watch a lot of videos, right? We're done. We'll do the next half probably Thursday instead of doing Acts. Like, I want to finish this. This is a good one. So, for, like, yeah, that's what we'll do. Thursday we'll finish this and we'll do Acts next week. All right? So, let me change that. We'll do Acts on the 27th. Because this is a good teaching, man. This is real good. Matthew chapter 5 is deep. Y'all need to read that, okay? What's I talking about? Okay, so I watch a lot of videos and stuff about like skeptics because it's like I want to know how to stand against their questions, against their so-called evidence. You know what I'm saying? If Jesus was alive today, think about how he treated them. Treated them. They straight up stopped asking questions, didn't they, D? Remember when we was going through the Gospels, D, like when he wrote one of his homework things was like, dude, he shut them up. Right? He made, like, literally, they were like, we're not asking him another thing. You know, we're just going to kill him. He would do the same thing today. Because he's God himself. So when we get into that book, man, especially the New Testament, and you see Jesus' character, you see his nature, you see his responses and the way he treats people, it's timeless. It's for today, just like it was then. Right? I love you guys.
Love you too.
You need help.
No, I'm saying no way.